Black Beauty, Chapter 4 to 6. Chapter 4, Birtwick Park. It was early in May when a man came from Gordon's, who took me away to the hall. My master said, "Goodbye, Darky. Be a good horse and always do your best." I could not say goodbye, so I put my nose in his hand. He patted me kindly, and I left my first home. I will describe the stable I was taken to. This was very roomy, with 4 good stalls. A large swinging window opened into the yard, making it pleasant and airy. The first stall was a large square one, shut in behind with a wooden gate. The others were common good stalls, but not nearly so large. It had a low rack for hay, and a low manger for corn. It was called a box stall, because the horse that was put into it was not tied up, but left loose to do as he liked. It is great to have a box stall. Into this fine box the groom put me. It was clean, sweet, and airy. I never was in a better box than that, and the sides were not so high, so that I could see all that went on through the iron rails that were at the top. He gave me some very nice oats, patted me, spoke kindly, and then went away. When I had eaten my oats, I looked around. In the stall next to mine stood a little fat gray pony, with a thick mane and tail, a very pretty head, and a pert little nose. I put my head up to the iron rails at the top of my box and said, "How do you do? What is your name?" He turned around as far as his halter would allow, held up his head, and said, "My name is Merrylegs. I carry the young ladies on my back, and sometimes I take our mistress out in the low cart. They think very well of me, and so does James. Are you going to live next door to me?" I said, "Yes." "Well, then," he said, "I hope you are good-tempered. I do not like anyone next door who bites." Just then a horse's head looked over from the stall beyond. The ears were laid back, and the eye looked rather ill-tempered. This was a tall chestnut mare, with a long handsome neck. She looked across to me and said, "So it is you who have turned me out of my box? It is a very strange thing for a colt like you to come and turn a lady out of her own home." "Excuse me," I said, "I have turned no one out. The man who brought me put me here, and I had nothing to do with it. I never had words yet with a horse or mare, and I wish to live at peace." "Well," she said, "we will see. Of course, I do not want to have words with a young thing like you." I said nothing. In the afternoon, when she went out, Merrylegs told me all about it. "The thing is," said Merrylegs, "Ginger has a habit of biting and snapping. That is why they call her Ginger, and when she was in the box stall, she used to snap a lot. One day she bit James in the arm and made it bleed, and so Miss Flora and Miss Jessie, who are very fond of me, were afraid to come into the stable. They used to bring me nice things to eat, an apple or a carrot or a piece of bread. But after Ginger stood in that box, they did not dare come, and I miss them very much. I hope they will now come again, if you do not bite or snap." I told him I never bit anything but grass, hay, and corn, and could not think what pleasure Ginger found from it. "Well, I don't think she does find pleasure," says Merrylegs. "It is just a bad habit. She says no one was ever kind to her, and why should she not bite? Of course, it is a very bad habit, but I am sure, if all she says to be true, she must have been very mistreated before she came here. John does all he can to please her, so I think she might be good-tempered here. You see," he said, with a wise look, "I am 12 years old. I know quite a lot, and I can tell you there is not a better place for a horse all over the country than this. John is the best groom that ever was. He has been here for 14 years, and you never saw such a kind boy as James. So it is all Ginger's own fault that she did not stay in that box." Chapter 5, A Fair Start. The name of the coachman was John Manley. He had a wife and 1 child, who lived in the coachman's cottage near the stables. The next morning he took me into the yard and gave me a good grooming, and just as I was going into my box, with my coat soft and bright. The squire came in to look at me and seemed pleased. "John," he said, "I meant to have tried the new horse this morning, but I have other business. You may as well take him around after breakfast. Go by the common and the highwood, and back by the watermill and the river. That will show his paces." "I will, sir," said John. After breakfast he came and fitted me with the bridle. He was very particular in rearranging the straps to fit my head comfortably. Then he brought a saddle, but it was not broad enough for my back. He saw it in a minute and went for another, which fitted nicely. He rode me first slowly, then a trot, then a canter, and when we were on the common, he gave me a light touch with his whip, and we had a splendid gallop. "Ho, ho, my boy," he said, as he pulled me up. "You would like to follow the hounds, I think." As we came back through the park, we met the squire and Mrs. Gordon walking. They stopped, and John jumped off. "Well, John, how does he go?" "First rate, sir," answered John. "He is as fleet as a deer, and has a fine spirit too, but the lightest touch of the rein will guide him." Down at the end of the common, we met one of those travelling carts hung all over with baskets, rugs, and the like. You know, sir, many horses will not pass those carts quietly. He just took a good look at it, and then went on as quiet and pleasant as could be. They were shooting rabbits near the high wood, and a gun went off close by. He pulled up a little and looked, but he did not stir a step to the right or left. I just held the reins steady and did not hurry him, and I think he has not been frightened or ill-used while he was young." "That's well," said the squire. "I will try him myself tomorrow." The next day I was brought up for my master. I remembered my mother's counsel and my good old master's, and I tried to do exactly what he wanted me to do. I found he was a very good rider, and thoughtful for his horse, too. When he came home, the lady was at the hall door as he rode up. "Well, my dear," she said, "how do you like him?" "He is exactly what John said," he replied. "I could not wish for a more pleasant animal to mount. What should we call him?" she said. "He is really quite a beauty, and he has such a sweet, good-tempered face, with such a fine, intelligent eye. What do you say to call him Black Beauty?" "Black Beauty. Why, yes, I think that is a very good name. If you like, it shall be his name." And so it was. When John went into the stable, he told James that the master and the mistress had chosen a good, sensible name for me that meant something. They both laughed, and James said, "If it was not for bringing back the past, I would have named him Rob Roy, for I never saw two horses more alike." "That's no wonder," said John. "Didn't you know that Farmer Gray's old Duchess was the mother of them both?" I had never heard that before, and so poor Rob Roy, who was killed at that hunt, was my brother. No wonder my mother was so troubled. It seems that horses have no siblings or relations. At least they never know each other after they are sold. John seemed very proud of me. He used to make my mane and tail almost as smooth as a woman's hair, and he would talk to me a great deal. Of course, I did not understand all he said, but I learned more and more to know what he meant, and what he wanted me to do. I grew very fond of him. He was so gentle and kind. He seemed to know just how a horse feels, and when he cleaned me, he knew the tender places and the ticklish places. When he brushed my head, he went as carefully over my eyes as if they were his own, and never stirred up any annoyance. James Howard, the stable boy, was just as gentle and pleasant in his way, so I thought myself well off. There was another man who helped me in the yard, but he had very little to do with Ginger and me. A few days after this, I had to go out with Ginger in the carriage. I wondered how we should get on together, but except laying her ears back when I was led up to her, she behaved very well. She did her work fairly and did her full share, and I never wished to have a better partner in double harness. When we came to a hill, instead of slackening her pace, she would throw her weight right into the collar and pull away straight up. We both had the same sort of courage at our work, and John often had to hold us in rather than to urge us forward. He never had to use the whip with either of us. Then our paces were much the same, and I found it very easy to keep step with her when trotting, which made it pleasant, and the master always liked it when we kept synchronized, and so did John. After we had been out 2 or 3 times together, we grew quite friendly and sociable, which made me feel very much at home. As for Merrylegs, he and I soon became great friends. He was such a cheerful, brave, good-tempered little fellow. He was a favorite with everyone, and especially with Miss Jessie and Flora, who used to ride him about in the orchard and have fine games with him and their little dog Frisky. Chapter 6. Merrylegs. Mr. Bloomfield, the vicar, had a large family of boys and girls. Sometimes they used to come and play with Miss Jessie and Flora. One of the girls was as old as Miss Jessie, 2 of the boys were older, and there were several little ones. When they came, there was plenty of work for Merrylegs, for nothing pleased them so much as getting on him by turns, and riding him all over the orchard and the home paddock, and this they would do by the hour together. One afternoon he had been sent out with them a long time, and when James brought him in and put on his halter, he said, "There, you scoundrel, watch how you behave yourself, or we'll be getting into trouble." "What have you been doing, Merrylegs?" I asked. "Oh," he said, tossing his little head, "I have only been giving those young people a lesson. They did not know when they had enough, so I just pitched them off backward. That was the only thing they could understand." "What?" I said. "You threw the children off? I thought you know better than that. Did you throw Miss Jessie or Miss Flora?" He looked very much offended and said, "Of course not. I would not do such a thing for the best oats that ever came into the stable. Why, I am as careful of our young ladies as the master could be. And as for the little ones, I'm the one for them to ride. When they seem frightened or a little unsteady on my back, I go as smooth and as quiet as old Kitty when she is after a bird. And when they are all right, I go on again faster. You see, just to let them get used to it. So don't you trouble yourself preaching to me. I am the best friend and the best riding master those children have. It is not them, it is the boys. Boys," he said, shaking his mane, "are quite different. They must be broken in, as we were broken in when we were colts, and just be taught how it is." The other children had ridden me about for nearly 2 hours, and then the boys thought it was their turn. And so it was, and I was quite agreeable. They rode me by turns, and I galloped them about, up and down the fields and all about the orchard, for a good hour. They had each cut a big hazel stick for a riding whip, and laid it on a little too hard. But I was patient, till at last I thought we had had enough, so I stopped 2 or 3 times by way of a hint. Boys think a horse or a pony is like a steam engine, and can go as long and as fast as they please. They never think that a pony can get tired, or have any feelings. So as the one who was whipping me could not understand, I just rose up on my hind legs and let him slip off behind. That was all. He mounted me again, and I did the same. Then the other boy got up, and as soon as he began to use his stick, I laid him on the grass, and so on, till they were able to understand. That was all. They were not bad boys. They don't wish to be cruel. I liked them very well. But you see, I had to give them a lesson. When they brought me to James and told him, I think he was very angry to see such big sticks. He said they were not for young gentlemen. "If I had been you," said Ginger, "I would have given those boys a good kick, and that would have given them a lesson." "No doubt you would," said Merrylegs. "But then I am not quite such a fool as to anger our master or make James ashamed of me. Besides, those children are under my charge when they are riding. I tell you, they are entrusted to me. Why, only the other day I heard our master say to Mrs. Bloomfield, 'My dear madam, you do not need to be anxious about the children. My old Merrylegs will take as much care of them as you or I could. I assure you I would not sell that pony for any money. He is so perfectly good-tempered and trustworthy." "And do you think I am such an ungrateful animal as to forget all the kind treatment I have had here for 5 years, and all the trust they placed in me, and turn vicious because a couple of ignorant boys used me badly? No, no, you never had a good place where they were kind to you, and so you don't know, and I am sorry for you. But I can tell you good places make good horses. I wouldn't vex our people for anything. I love them, I do," said Merrylegs, and he gave a low ho-ho-ho through his nose, as he used to do in the morning when he heard James' footstep at the door.